Let's cut right to the chase. Creative people are pretty nuts, and I know this because I'm one of them. If you're like me, you wonder, how do people get over the issues we face? That's what this show is all about. Think of each episode as a warm bath for the soul. We're all in this together, so let's do something good with the time we have left. This show is my love letter to the human condition. This, my friends, is Sentimental Illness.
I say it every time. I say it again. Can't breathe this week. Can never breathe anymore. Don't get old, folks. It sucks. It's this weird thing. You know, like when you're, I don't know. I can't necessarily explain my own experience, but when you're young and your parents are like in their 50s, you're like, oh my God, they're grandpas. Yeah. And they complain about everything hurting and everything sucking, no sleep. And, you know, my goiter, my thumb, I can't run anymore. I can barely walk. Yeah, I'm embarrassing myself. All right. I don't have a monologue today. I don't have anything to say. I'm just real excited about having my guest. Yeah. We had to postpone. So anyways, so what am I doing? Here's the truth. Finished my book, finished the audio book last week. And then at the very last minute, this was absolutely stellar experience. I had about 72 hours to finish, and I finished. So, hey, I'm way ahead of the curve. Everything is going great. Publishing company, everybody's happy. And then the day before, so this is Thursday at lunchtime, which means I've got roughly a day for a deadline. I get a call from the publisher, the production team, and they say, hey, so where's chapter 3? We're like, chapter 3? I did 12 chapters. What are you talking about? And he's like, well, I need this chapter. And I'm looking, I recorded it. So I know it's got to be home on the computer. I come home with my daughter. I broke up our lunch, by the way. Thanks so much. Come home, get on my computer, pull up the PDF file. I don't recognize a word in that chapter, which means I didn't read it, which means now I have about 6 hours of work in front of me. It was complete and utter torture. I did it, finished it. Everybody loves it. It's all good. So we're cool. But having this cold in the process, working with a new publisher is really weird because they think that is how I sound. Like right now, I don't sound like this, guys. I don't have this sexy a voice normally. My voice is much more obnoxious. Anyways, as I gasp and I blow my nose, poor Connor, I do want to welcome my guest today. So before I bring him on, let me give you a little brief intro. So long story short is I would consider myself friends with this gentleman's label management people. Okay, long story short. James is a buddy of mine. Yeah, we've known each other for 3 years now, and he points me towards all these incredible bands, all this incredible music. And this band Alchemize came into my purview probably, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago. And I love this style of music. I hate pigeonholing bands. I hate saying they sound like X. So I'm not going to do that today. I'm actually going to let Connor, when he comes on, explain what he thinks the band sounds like, for what that's worth. But that being said, I love this type of music. I love this type of sound. I don't want to lump it into, again, a traditional metalcore thing, or I don't even know what I would call it, alternative pop. But it's so good. It's just so good. The band is so good. And nowadays, bands don't typically release records. They release singles. So you get to hear them grow right in front of you, which is a really fantastic way to keep yourself in the public eye. Back in my day, when we were kids, we got lucky if there was a 12-song LP that would come out, and we'd get 1, maybe 2 tracks, and then the rest would be relegated to album fodder, from a late night radio show in the mid 70s. Wolfman Jack would be talking about side 2 of a Rush album, so he could use the bathroom at 2 a.m. Anyway, Connor Blackwood is here today. He is the front man for Alchemize. He's going to tell me all about the things he does and why he does them. But, music like this, people like this is the reason I do this. I'm not making any money at this, guys. I do this because I love music. I love new sounds, new people, new styles, new approaches, and sometimes homages to old sounds and styles and approaches. But what I like about Alchemize is that they're doing something really unique to them. So for us today, the rest is really just discovery. We're going to have a conversation with Connor, going to listen to some music, and we'll do our thing. So let me bring my guy on if I can just figure it out like I do every frickin' time. Here we go. All right, adding to the stage. My boy from Alchemize, Connor Blackwood, bring him on. Hey, buddy, how are you?
No, I'm not too bad, mate. How are you doing?
You know, as I mentioned at the top of this hour, gasping away to breathe, because the reality is my nose is so clogged that it's all mouth breathing. See, I can't even talk. It's all mouth breathing right now, which is a challenge and interesting. And my lips are all dry and my lips are stuck together to my teeth. It's a nightmare.
Hey, it's like ever seen that episode of Friends where Phoebe gets a cold?
Yes.
She sings Smelly Cat.
Yes. That's, in fact, I was doing that with my wife last night. I was doing the Smelly Cat song. So yeah, there's something about that sort of translates across all bounds. Yeah, I actually woke up, Connor. I woke up in the middle of the night. You know, I mean, again, I can't breathe, so woke up in the middle of the night, sort of gasping for air. And when I woke up, my lip was stuck to my top teeth. And it literally was so welded on from probably 4 or 5 hours of mouth breathing that I actually, when I tore it off, it was like, you know, sticking your tongue on a cold pole. You know, it just tore it and it was bleeding. Nobody cares.
No, not completely. Yeah, I've been there myself. It's very unpleasant.
Very unpleasant. Anyways, well, welcome to the show, man. How are you doing today, buddy?
Yeah, doing really, really well, thank you. So, yeah, it's been a busy few weeks, few months, and that. And we've just come off the back of playing a show in a local town near us on Friday. So, yeah, we're just really prepping for the next show now. That's in a few weeks. So it's it's been a good experience so far.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting too. You know, as I mentioned when I was bringing you on, a lot of people still don't understand how the new system works. Meaning, people aren't usually putting albums together. They're doing maybe a 4-song EP, but for the most part, they're just releasing singles, and they create drip campaigns that way. So they're kind of constantly in the public eye versus, you know, an album cycle where they're out there for 2 or 3 months and then they're gone for 2 years. You know,
absolutely.
So go ahead, please.
I was just going to say, like you're quite right to say, it's keeping that attention around, isn't it? Keeping the activity sort of flowing, because I was saying this the other day to the lads in the band, to be fair, is that it's a demand, isn't it? It's like such a high demand from the public.
Yeah.
People just want more all the time. Not necessarily people are demanding our stuff all the time, but, you know, just the way that the music industry does grow, it's people want more. They want number ones all the time. They want a new thing all the time. So
yeah. I think it's actually better in that way. When I was trying to be a somebody in the music business, it was all about, how much material do you have? Can you play, you know, an hour-and-a-half show? Can you release 12 songs on a record? You know, do you have 60 minutes of material? And, you know, that's intimidating when you're a young band, especially when you have no audience to speak of, when it's all just hopium, you know. And I like this. I like this new model for bands. It really gives them a chance. It gives management and labels an opportunity to actually sell a sound and a look. You know, I think it just makes it infinitely more marketable.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more with you on that one. And even in that respect, it's like, as you're quite rightly referencing there, is a bit of a dilemma that we faced as well, is because when we did our first show, we only really had one song out. And this was before the label, as you mentioned earlier, James come and picked us up, is that, you want to play all your songs. So you do play your songs that you can play. No one knows them other than the one that we released at that time. So it's like, I really want you all to sing along to this, but you can't. So.
Yeah. No, it's true. But the nice part is at least, if you have a label, if you have management, you can get some play nowadays. There are a number of outlets, it's not just Kerrang, you know what I mean? There are a number of outlets that will play your material if it's either marketed well to them or it suits their genre desire, right? There's obviously, serious, different satellite channels that will play certain types of music exclusively. And I think that's pretty fantastic. And as long, I think, as if the music is catchy, fairly short, meaning like they aren't, 20-minute long prog rock tunes, you know what I mean? That sort of capture the younger audience, you can really make a lot of headway really fast. Especially if you're good looking too, of which I'm not.
Well, it does tend to have a lot of things as well as the image. And, I think quite rightly say, from when we were releasing our first songs away from the management, we realized like how difficult it was to actually sell it, because you understand yourself to your own degree of how you want the song to be sort of perceived. But then when we come on board with James, and he's already given us tips on how to sell ourselves, and he's been doing a lot of work behind the scenes as well, which I thank him for, of course. Just seeing how he promotes the stuff is just a level that you would look at as an individual and be like, okay, that I can see not where I was going wrong, but I can see why you're in the position you're in. You know what you're doing, as opposed to us.
Yes, absolutely. Where are you guys based out of? Are you in Newcastle? Where are you at?
Oh, Manchester, England.
Manchester.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, again, us Americans, it's probably a lot like you saying, "Hey, when I go to America, I'm going to go to I don't know, name a town in Missouri," and the answer is I don't know where that is, but I know where Manchester is. But all that being said, we have this assumption that the country is so small that it must be just, a 20-minute jaunt from your home to London or your home to Scotland. And of course, it's not like that at all.
No, not at all. I mean, when you compare it in size to America, obviously you have vast amounts of space and land there. That's, you're taking days just to get from one state to another.
Yeah.
Whereas there in the UK, we're not facing that. We only have a few hours either side. Of course, let's say if I was to go to London today, take 4 hours.
Yeah.
Vice versa, the same to like Scotland End and stuff. But it's fun. It's a beautiful place to be. If no one's ever been, I'd 100% recommend it. It's absolutely beautiful. It has its bad parts, like everywhere does, really. So
sure. I mean, the best part about Europe is that everything is close in. You can go to Belgium in a day. You can go to, Portugal in a day and a half, or whatever you want to call it. But then the problem with something like Europe is that when there's a war, all those countries are easy to get to.
Well, unfortunately, I mean, the beauty, like you could just go. Today, for example, I could just quite easily go, right, I'm going to go to Amsterdam, and I could probably be there in, let's say, an hour. It's so accessible, and obviously, America's such on a larger scale is that you getting from A to B isn't as simple. I mean, you have the access to travel, of course, but let's say getting from, so we've got some friends in Canada.
Yeah.
And if you were to go from Canada to, let's say, another state, Texas, you're looking at hours just for flying. Am I right?
Yeah, for flying. Yeah. I mean, driving, if you wanted to go from the Canadian border to the bottom of Texas, it would take you at least 2 days.
Well, exactly. There you go. It's
a long ways. I mean, Texas, we get a lot of jokes about Texas, but Texas, right in the middle at the bottom of the country is such a large state that it takes 1 day to drive across. And that's if you drive straight. I mean, we're talking a day. It is just monstrously wide. And there's a highway 10 that just, it's the interstate, which runs from Florida to California. And it takes a day just to go through Texas. It's honestly, pretty weird.
That's one place I would really love to go. It's just America in general. It's just for me, it's land that obviously I've never been to, I've never seen. So I'd love to go and just explore. Obviously, people do that Route 66 drive and whatnot and stuff like that. So it's, it'd be amazing. But I think I've got too much land to sort of discover area in the UK. I mean, like Scotland, for example, I've only ever been to Glasgow, but I'm missing out on so much that's in Scotland. It's such a beautiful country.
Yeah.
So by all means, like just exploring. Everyone get out there if you can. If you've got somewhere you've not been, go to it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, I'm 57 years old. I've lived in this country my whole life, with the exception of a few months in Japan. And I would tell you that I've seen 44 of the 50 states. I've never been to Hawaii, and as an example, and I've never been to some of the states that are landlocked. Like I've never been to Vermont. Which is, well, I've been to New Hampshire and New York, which is on either side of it. But for whatever reason, I've never caught that sliver. But yeah, I mean, look, it's reality. Do we ever really get a chance to see everything? I mean, sometimes it's right in our backyard and we missed it our entire lives, and we'll never see it. We think we're going to get to it and we just don't. It's just life, you know?
Yeah, no, you are right. It is life. But, you know, if anyone does get the opportunity, then 100% just take it while you can. Do you know what I mean? If you've got that opportunity, life's too short to not take your opportunities.
Yeah.
And if you can, it's there, do it. You know, that's my motto anyway. If you've got it, just go for it. Yeah.
Well, especially when you're young too. The one thing that I've learned, if I could teach anything to younger people, excuse me as I move this around in my floor, is that when you can, do it, because there's a moment in your life, especially if you get married or you have children, you know, you're required to take care of those people. And, you know, I mean, I'm proof that you can fail at that miserably and still do okay, you know, but you are required. That's your job now. It's not your job to go be selfish and be you anymore. It's your job to be for them. And that is something you will then rob yourself out of opportunity later. It doesn't mean being a parent or being a husband is awful. It just means to say that once you are those things, you have to be those things. You don't get to carouse around and be, you know, the whatever guy doing whatever you want, wherever you want to go. And so do it now while you have a chance, you know, or like my son did, marry somebody who's open to the idea and live everywhere, you know, and they got married, they had a daughter, then they had a son, and then they moved to the other side of the country, and they have been on the move ever since. And that was 12 years ago. They just, they're constantly trying new things. They decided just last year, hey, let's move to Wyoming. Let's just move to the middle of the country. And I'm like, why? And my son literally said, because I saw some stuff on the internet that looked cool. And I'm like, you moved because you saw stuff on the internet?
And I'm not going to lie, I admire that a lot.
I do too.
That's brave to be able to just take that and go, right, do you know what? I've seen it. I want to go and see it. I'm going to go live it.
Yeah.
I admire that. That's ace.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, and I would like to think I'm that guy, but I don't know. I'm kind of a pansy when it comes to that sort of thing. I mean, I like change, but because I've experienced so many change in my life, the last thing I want to do is do it again. I'd rather just, I'm a creature of habit by now. I just want to stay where I'm at. It's just so much easier. All right, let's get to you now.
And now it's time for self-diagnosis.
All right, brother. First of all, one more time, thanks for being here today. I really appreciate you dealing with my schedule. I am so sorry I had to push you out a couple weeks with this book, but I'm so glad you're here, man. It's so nice to meet you.
Oh, it's nice to meet you. And like I say, you don't need to apologize at all. I get it. Life is as it is. So I appreciate the fact that you've offered to invite us on. So thank you very much for the invite and having me on.
Well, you're welcome. You're more than welcome. So with you, since you're my guest here today, we can talk about the band. We can talk about all kinds of things. And you have let me know that for the most part, nothing is really off the table. We can discuss anything. But for my listeners and for myself, because I'm kind of curious how people start. You know, when I was a kid, I knew I wanted to be a drummer from as long back as I can remember. I cannot remember a time when that wasn't a part of the fabric of who I am. And I guess for you, then my starting question would be, what was the moment that you knew music was going to be part of your life, and maybe even being a performer was going to be the direction you pushed yourselves towards?
It's a tricky one. So, well, I say it's tricky. It's not tricky. I've gone on quite a musical journey, to be fair. So so growing up, I was mainly into sports, a lot of football, well, as you would refer to it in America, soccer.
Right. I knew.
And I've got a lot of footballing sort of family and stuff over here as well, big into sports. So my dad, for example, was a karate champion. My granddad was in the army, boxing. My uncle did kickboxing. So all my family are relatively that way inclined.
Yeah.
And then I did football for a good few years up until like the early. What did you say about? We would class it as like year 8. So you go from into your secondary school. I don't know what that would be in America. So the high school aspects, early years of high school. And then one of my friends was just playing sort of guitar. I thought, that was pretty cool. So then I sort of deviated. But then my music tastes were I actually always used to love my hip hop and my old R&B. So for example, like you had your Usher, for example, back in the early 2000s and late 90s, etc. That type of R&B was my sort of go-to. And then as I got older, your taste sort of redefined, just like with coffee, for example. You know, you don't like coffee when you're young, but when you're older, your taste buds sort of develop.
Yeah.
And it was the same with music, and I just started to get into the heavier side of music. And one band really stood out to me. It was one of my first ever gigs, actually. It was a band called Pseudo.
How do you spell that?
CHIODOS.
Oh.
Pseudo.
I've never heard of them.
A singer called, was it Craig Owens? Yeah, Craig Owens.
Okay.
Great voice. Excellent voice.
I feel like an idiot.
And I went to see them in Manchester in a really small venue at Manchester Academy, funnily enough. And well, obviously, I suppose you know Manchester Academy. It's basically inside a uni hall, but it's like a really small room that they were in, so it's Academy free. So it's basically like a small box room, and they were on. And probably one of the best gigs I've ever been to. It was just really intimate, really powerful, just full of energy the whole way through. And there was an artist there supporting them by the name of Sonny Moore, also known as Skrillex now.
Yeah. I knew.
So he was in a band called From First to Last, which I would never listen to. But he left From First to Last to do his Skrillex stuff. But this was before he was known as Skrillex. And he was known as Sonny Moore. And he supported them on that tour. Oh, it was excellent. It was probably one of the best shows I've ever been to. And it still sits in my head here. And then from there, it was like, right, I need to learn how to get my voice like his. Obviously, I don't have the singing voice of it, but the screaming was something that I went home and I practiced for weeks and weeks. And I got it in the end. And then here we are now.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a long journey.
Well, so First to Last they were a screamo, right? I mean, that was the thing. That was who they were, what they were. What do you think that was that captured you about that type of music at that time? Were you just the perfect age to be filled with enough angst, enough anxiety that something like that spoke to you because you sensed an anger or a rebellion in it? Like, what was what captured you about it?
It was the aggression, if I'm going to be completely honest. It's just something that's always sort of, I mean, I'm not an aggressive person, but it just kind of resonates in a way. I like how it can empower, it can make you feel so many ways. And I know music, you can sit there and say, oh, there's aggression to it.
Yeah.
But the aggression doesn't necessarily make you feel aggressive as an individual. It can make you feel motivated. It can make you feel powerful. It can make you feel engaged. So there's just so many different levels to an aggressive sound more than an aggressive persona. So yeah, it was that was mainly a thing for me. And there was another band as well that did it really well that really caught my eye at the same time called We Are the Ocean.
Oh, okay.
So they had a beautiful mix of melodic choruses with a really harsh vocalist as well. So then he would be around, bobbing around, giving the energy. Very similar to, like you said, Prodigy. He was the man running around, screaming, making people move. And then you had the singer doing these really melodic beautiful choruses. And there was just something about the aggression with the melodic that just got me like really, I don't know.
Yeah.
There was, I think it was the aggression if I'm going to narrow it down. Yeah.
Yeah. So and so We Are the Ocean. That's not the Ocean or the Ocean Collective. That's not the same band. It's a different.
No. So these were a small UK based
Okay.
band,
Okay.
and then I say small. They did do some good shows. They did sell out a lot of shows, and they were quite big to the music scene in the UK.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, again, if you ever get a chance to check them out, they're no longer going anymore, unfortunately. I would love to go and see them again.
Yeah.
But they're some really good songs that I listen back to every now and then. I'll just put them on and go, yeah, this is nostalgia. This is what I like.
Yeah. No, I mean, I do the same thing. I go back to 1975 though. It's so bizarre being old, man. It is so bizarre because it happens like that. It's like, wait a minute, where did everything go? So how long has Alchemize been together now?
Okay. So Alchemize, we released initially in March this year.
Okay.
So we originally got together, it was around sort of like July time last year. So there was two members that are in the band currently. You've got Adam and Brandon, the two guitarists, also two vocalists. They were in another band under the name of Asleep at the Helm. Now they decided to step away from that band for their own personal reasons, and they then obviously wanted to go on a different adventure. So they've kind of took up this, and then they needed a vocalist. So I'll give you a bit of a funny story with this actually. Yeah. So I am a bassist by trade. I'm not actually a vocalist.
Right.
I've been in many bands playing bass, doing a bit of backing vocals here and there. And then I stopped doing music for a good 10 years.
What?
So I went to university, got my degrees and stuff, and then just kind of stopped playing music, stepped away from it. And then the last year, I was like, oh, I really want to get back into music. So I started practicing my vocals, thinking, I can play bass, get back on vocals, and, just have a mess around in someone's garage or something, practice room. And then these reached out to me and said, would you be interested in being just vocals? And I was like, I won't lie. I told them this. I said, I read the message and I was going to ignore it because I didn't think I was going to be up to the standard that they'd want. Being a bassist and vocalist, I didn't think I could fit in that mold that they wanted.
Right.
But then I thought, you know what? I'll live a little. Just go for it. Why not? Let's see what happens. The worst they can say is it's not my thing, and then I can just go ahead and do something else.
Yeah.
I reached out and said, yeah, let's go for it. And here we are now, a year down the line, and I've been with these lads for that space of time, and it's been amazing. Awesome. I wouldn't change a single bit of it. Yeah. I'm so happy that I'm doing it because I've stepped out of my own comfort zone, and I'm doing things that I never thought I thought I could do. So it's and especially from the help and I don't want to say help as such, but what's the encouragement, what they've given me. Bearing in mind, I never knew them prior to this. I just kind of stepped into that practice room with them, and they gave me all the encouragement I needed, and they didn't even know me. They didn't even need to give me the encouragement, and they stood by me every step of the way. So we bonded really quickly. So.
No, that's fantastic. The motto of my show is just say yes, right? Because sentimental illness, SI, is C in Spanish, which is yes. Okay.
Absolutely.
I didn't think about that when I put it together. It just happened to come together. And then I looked at the logo and I was like, C as in yes. Oh my God, just say yes, right? Because in America, in the 80s, we had a drug campaign that the president had and his wife, who it was called Just Say No, right? Don't take drugs. Just say no. Like that's going to stop people, right? Anyway, just say yes. But I've found that just saying yes, not in all circumstances, you have to utilize some wisdom. But when you have opportunities as a creative, saying yes to possibility is everything. You just never really know. Closing yourself off from ideas because you think you have it all wired is a short, quick route to certain death in the music business. But if you're open to suggestion from producers, from bandmates, from family, from yourself, just trying something new and taking a risk, you wouldn't believe how much you can gain for yourself, how much wisdom, how much experience, how much the band or your style can break through because, you said yes to an idea or an opening or just the possibility of trying something outside of your comfort zone. And all of a sudden you have material that would have never right, would have never existed without somebody saying, why not, man? Why not?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And a good example with that as well is, I've been able to scream for a very long time. Like I say, probably about 16 years. One of the first things that I learned with my vocals. Now stepping into this room with the lads, we have a song that we've released called Weight in Gold that came out in July. And they're like, well, we want you to do the chorus. I was like, look, lads, I can scream, I can't sing. And they were like, no, we believe in you. Go for it. Let's see what happens. And if you go back and listen to that song, I never knew I could sing like that. So I shocked myself. And yeah, no, it's like I say, without them sort of pushing me in the right direction and having that support there, it's been incredible. So
yeah.
Like you say, if you don't say yes, you don't know. And what's
right.
the worst if someone then turns around and says, that's not quite it?
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah.
You're not going to die. So
yeah, I learned that in business too. Years ago, I used to run an insurance business, and I remember my district manager telling me, well, why don't you just call those people and ask them for this piece of business, this additional piece of business. And I would always, I had a lot of reservations, trepidation over making phone calls. I don't like the idea of cold calling per se. But long story short is my boss, whatever you want to call him, said, look, what are they going to do? They're going to stop working with you because you asked them a question. And even though it's a sales question, he's correct. He's correct. People aren't going to shut you down. They might not want to, they might not say yes, but they're not going to shut you down because you asked a question. They're just not. I mean, people aren't that big of dicks. they really aren't. They might say, hey, Connor, I really don't like your approach to that. I don't like the scream. I don't like you singing. I don't like the song being in 7/8, whatever the choice is, but you'll never know unless you try it. I mean, that's life. It's, I say it to my wife all the time. How are you going to know what a sunburn feels like? You've kind of got to go too far. That's the only way you learn.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And another good example that we have from that actually recently is, since we signed to this label, obviously we've got a certain plan with what we need to release and how we go about it. Because obviously James is putting us on the right track to get us in the eyes. So we were recording a new song a few weeks back and we were like, right, we don't actually know what melody we produced for this. So Adam put one down and we were just honest and said, that didn't quite work in that one. I put one down and again, didn't quite work. And then collectively, we then come together and said, actually, why don't we try this? And then that's the one we landed on. But like you're quite right to say, if you don't put the idea out, if you don't go for it, you're never going to know. Yeah. So go for it and just see what comes of it.
Yeah. Well, you also happen to have, a great label, great management behind you. When you have somebody like James who's very good at artist development. He has an ear. He doesn't just have taste. He has an ear. He knows the direction to point you. And the fact that you're, I don't want to say you're young enough, but that you are open enough to listen and be guided, realizing you don't have all the answers, is why you're having success now. And it's deserved. So I'm very happy for you, buddy.
Thank you very much. No, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So you were telling me, you sent me an email saying, hey, Rob, so even though I know you're not, quote unquote, famous in the sense of like a traditional, nationally known celebrity, you are making waves. People are starting to pay attention, which is great. And you told me, and I want you to tell me the whole story now, about a time you were at a supermarket and somebody wanted to take photos with you, which I thought was very strange. Do you recall this story?
Yeah, it was only a few weeks ago, realistically.
Oh, okay.
About a month or so ago. So this is quite funny. So I went across to the supermarket. So I finished work. I worked from home on this day. So I was finished down. I was like, oh, actually, I don't have any food in, so I need to go and get some food and then I can start cooking tea. So I'm wearing all black, got my hoodie on, going to the supermarket, start getting stuff. Goes to check out, pay. And I'm going through the door and the security guard jumps out from his little post. So I don't know if they have it like this in the US, but by the door in the supermarket, you'll have a little podium where a security guard will sort of sit. I don't know what he does. I mean, obviously he's there to make sure everyone's safe and whatnot, but by all means, he's just in his little podium. So he jumped up, and I'm not very good with public interactions as it is. I don't know why. I just don't like talking to people when I'm not prepared. So I seen him go beeline towards me, and I was like, oh, crap. So I put my head down. I was like, have I accidentally picked something up that I shouldn't have? So I'm just like walking a little bit faster, which made it a little bit more suspicious considering I'm dressed all in black, got my hoodie on, and just like, oh, get out. And he stopped me and he went, can I have a picture? And I was like, okay. I didn't quite know why. I didn't ask. I just said, okay. So I was assuming he was asking for a picture of me.
Right.
Because when you come straight out of the block saying, oh, can I have a picture? It's a bit like, okay. And then as I've gone to smile, he's handed me his phone and then stepped back and gone, so he wanted me to take a picture of him,
right.
Just of himself.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay. So I took one, give it him, and he was like, it's too dark. Can you do it again? So I was like, all right, okay. Did it again. And he's like, and I still can't see properly. So he took me outside. I did about 3 or 4 more pictures in the lobby of the supermarket. And I was like, are they okay? And he was like, still too dark. Can we go outside? So we went outside into the car park, took some pictures. And I was like, are you okay now? And he just went, nah, they'll do. And he just walked off. I was like, okay.
I love the fact that maybe in the beginning it was all about you. I love that. But I was thinking about this when you told me that story, and I was just double checking just now. If you wonder why I was looking off to the side, Julian Barrett from the Mighty Boosh.
Oh yes, I love the Mighty Boosh.
You kind of look like him, and so for a younger version of him, of course. And so my brain was thinking, well, maybe the guy thought you were Julian Barrett. You know what I mean? But no,
that's a great compliment. That is a great compliment. I love Julian, especially with his beady eyes. I don't know how much you watch the Mighty Boosh, but he's there.
No,
I used to have a friend actually who looked quite like Noel Fielding as well.
Really?
So the pair of us together, to be fair, we used to get like a house on fire. So it was probably like the same relationship that we had. So
yeah, no doubt. Well, okay. So one of the questions I kind of like to ask to everybody, and, I'll put it a different way to you, but, I like the idea of being born for a purpose. I'm not saying that we all are. I'm not saying that we all aren't. I actually don't know. I can make an assumption and say like, oh, God made me to do X or Y or Z, or I've been imbued with a certain set of talents and that's my purpose in the world. I don't know what it is. I don't know. I don't know. But I am curious, and I think everybody does have a direction that once they discover it, it's kind of one of those things where they go, you know what? I was always made to do this, whatever that thing is. Now, at the age you are, you're getting established in this business. You're here on this show. You've recorded material. You have a record deal. Things are going for you. I'm not asking you to implode the direction of where you're at right now and to say, no, this isn't my purpose. But do you feel like you're in your purpose, or do you feel like you're still waiting to discover where you're actually going with your life?
I'll be completely honest. When I joined the band last year, I never felt happier. It was really weird. So like I say, I took a big step out of music for quite a while because kind of lost a bit of interest. And I thought, maybe music wasn't really for me. Mm-hmm. And then I joined, it was finding the right people to make it work, if that makes sense. So when I found these boys and we started to gel and we started to get the songs together. When we did our first show in Liverpool earlier this year, when we released and announced, I was like, yeah, this is right. This just feels what I need to be doing. And then don't get me wrong, I'm touching on that point. I still feel like we've got a hell of a lot of potential to give.
Yeah.
But by all means, yeah, I would agree with you in the fact that I do feel like I am on the right path. I would say, absolutely.
That's awesome. Well, yeah, I mean, you're just starting. So, I mean, I certainly wouldn't assume that you're burned out on it or anything like that. But I imagine it does feel good to know you feel like you're going in the right direction, because even if you're not, here's the beauty of feeling like you are, because you've sort of taken it and owned that feeling, it actually drives your future. right?
Yep.
If I always dreamed about being a teacher, as an example, which I didn't, thank God, because I'm not good at that. But let's say I couldn't wait to be a teacher. And then I went through the schooling and I did the 6 years of college and all the extra studies. And I want to specialize in a certain type of, I don't know, chemistry. And then I go to work at a school. I'm a chemistry teacher in high school and I hate every second of it. That's a lot of people's experience. They think, they build for the dream, they get there, and then they realize, oh, the work is radically different, or I don't have the freedoms I expected, or this doesn't feel a certain way. And the beauty in life is when logic meets how you feel, because it's rare. It's as an example. I'm sorry I'm talking so much, but I think this is important.
No.
Is that, like you look at relationships, right? Why does everybody get divorced? I mean, why? Almost everybody gets divorced. Nobody sticks to it anymore. And it's because sticking to it is really a combination of dealing with experiences. It's not how you feel. If you go on how you feel in life, you're going to change your job every couple of months or years at the most. You're going to change your significant other when you've had one too many arguments. It's just human nature to stop feeling a certain way, to grow apart, to grow out of, and to move on to the next thing, because the grass is greener, because the next thing is going to answer my problem. The next thing is going to make me feel better about myself. The next thing is my goal. I always actually wanted to be there, but I'm here. You know what I mean? It's that we're constantly talking ourselves into what we think we deserve or where we should go. To have you in your spot at your age and to recognize wisely that it's about now and it's about being present in the now and experiencing the now, regardless of how you feel about it, is where success comes.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's going to happen to you.
Well, I appreciate that. And I couldn't agree more with what you were saying that as well, is touching on the fact that you said about sort of relationships, divorce, etc.
Yeah.
Sometimes taking those options can be the easier option. And it's the same with, I could have said no to this band last year when the opportunity came about, when we said, oh, do you want to join? And like I say, I had that thought where I said no, but I said no out of fear.
Yeah.
And out of a fear of the unknown, of if I don't try it, I'm not going to know. And if they do say yes, then I've got to really push myself. And this is where I'm at now. And like you quite rightly say, we're all born, but you feel like we're born for a purpose. And again, I agree to an extent, because if I hadn't have said yes, and if I hadn't have taken the opportunity to join the band or be in this position, well, I wouldn't be here now talking to you, having this chat. The band might be a completely different band, and it might be something else. But we've released within the month of March, and we signed up with James by the May. So it's, it's all sort of falling well into place with our persistence and our ideologies of how we want it to be. So absolutely agree with everything you say.
Yeah. No, well, I'm glad. I'm glad that it's come together the way it's come together. And I'm glad that of all the management and labels out there that, you're starting with a really good one right off the bat. So, I mean, you're having experiences. Look, I'll tell you, I'll throw myself under the bus. I am secretly envious of almost everybody I chat with, because I desired to have my band break in ways that I've met so many bands do, and they just didn't work. It was just bad timing, or whatever. But I really do feel, and so this is a warning to anybody listening, that not just in my era, but how I'm programmed, there was a real level of dissatisfaction. I would find something I liked, but I was doing the thing I talked about a second ago with relationships. I would get in the relationship and it was about how I felt about it. And then we would write material and it was about how I felt about the material. And then if we started evolving in the material, it was about how I felt about the material we used to do, not what we're doing now. So I would stay in this sort of romanticized bubble, this creative holding pattern that I wasn't willing to evolve out of, because I like X and I didn't necessarily like X plus Y, because that to me meant we were going towards Z and I like X. And it was just really hard for me to grow. And I'm pretty sure I unintentionally sabotaged my own career because of it. So I laud you for doing that, because you recognize the power in growth and the power of the stimulating power of trying something new. It's healthy for you.
Yeah. And again, I'm going slightly off topic with this here, but I just want to say a massive shout out to my partner for that purpose, because she, we've been together for about 8 years.
Oh, wow.
And I was very, very similar to a certain extent, in a way of where you would sort of have your own sort of, not selfish, but it is in a weird way that you would only want to do things by your terms. When you do enter into certain relationships, you then have to compromise, but it's how much you're willing to compromise and then develop. And she's taught me so much about myself that's allowed me to recognize what I need to change in my life to make my life better, and our lives as a whole be what it needs to be.
Yeah.
And then that's also then leading on to this conversation is where that's allowed me to sort of recognize I have potential in other areas that I would, if we weren't together, then I might have more probability of turning them down, like, for example, joining the band. So having that in my life has allowed me to develop myself, to be a better person, and to grow, and to do what I'm doing now, and to understand what I need to keep doing to keep growing. So, big shout out to her. Absolutely. So yeah. She's got me essentially into the position that I'm in to feel comfortable to do the things that I'm doing now. So.
Yeah, that's right on. Well, so do you write, without outing too much here, do you tend to write about your own personal experiences, or do you, how do you guys come up with themes for your material? I ask because when I was a kid, we were, one of us, I was the drummer, so I would get assigned the lyrics, because I think everybody thought I was Neil Peart, and this idea that I would be best as a lyricist, and that wasn't where my strength was. But, I would just be there because somebody had to do it. How do you see your role in the band, and does do your relationships play into what you write?
Absolutely. We do take all of our songs quite seriously. For example, with the one we've just released, Upside Down. I don't know if you'd give it a listen.
I have. It's a good song.
It's a very strong, powerful song. It's basically about being in a toxic situation, and then being able to take yourself out of it and develop and grow. So at the end, Adam sings a really strong note, which again, using his amazing talents to sing, he hits this really good note, and it's about, he basically says, I found myself once again, but the whole song's about the story of development, of being in this negative situation, being in a toxic scenario, to then growing and evolving. So the song grows with the emotion. And like I say, he hits this incredible note to say, I found myself once again. And yeah, again, just a perfect example of essentially what we take from,
emotional catharsis.
Absolutely. Yeah.
How's the public response with that song? I mean, I was watching it again yesterday in preparation for this today, but I love that song. It's a great song. Very well done.
Yeah, it's a nice song. I mean, in comparison to the other two that we released, it's been a bit of a slow burner. Mm-hmm. But I think the more we release and the more we sort of get people on our side with more releases, I think people will start to pick up that song, because I know for a fact, as I'm a big fan of music, there's been songs that I would listen to an album. So, for example, have you heard of a band called Don Broco?
Yes. And I want to say something. In America, none of us know Don Broco. I mean, they play the smallest, when they do shows here, they're packed, but there's only like 150 people. I mean, they're not a thing here. And then they play stadiums in the UK. So I don't know, but keep going. So, I had to throw this about Don Broco. Great band.
No, it's a good fact actually, because just touching on what you said there. So in my old band, I played with them in a really small venue back in 2011.
Nice.
So like you said, it was a very, very small venue, brilliant. And then that's from that point I fell in love with them. But they released an album a few years back. And I'm one of those people which I'll look through the listing of the album, and I won't just go for the ones that I think, oh, that's going to be a hit.
Yeah.
I'll pick one based on a name, and then I will tend to sort of fall in love with that one. And Greatness is the song on one of the albums I'm talking. So it's the Technology album, and they have a song called Greatness. And I thought, I'm going to listen to that. And that one became my favorite instantly. And I don't know why, but it's probably not one of the most popular on that album.
Yeah.
Because they have other massive hitters like Technology and things like that.
Right, right.
But for me, great song, stands out, amazing. And I don't know, I think that'll be the same with like Upside Down. I think people will start to appreciate this song more the more they understand us and the more they listen to our work. I think that'll be one that people come back to and go, oh, we slept on this one a bit. I do like this one.
Yeah. No, I think that's actually very true. I think anybody, well, okay, there's a lot to say about this. A lot of it's just personal opinion. For example, I grew up in the mid-'70s where prog rock was the thing. Yes, Rush, Kansas, early Styx, Emerson, Lake and Palmer, right? This kind of music, which now you would hear in bands like Haken and Caligula's Horse and Leprous, right? That's when you're going to hear modern prog rock. Well, so I grew up with that. I liked it because as a drummer, you're talking lots of notes. It's a lot of fun to play music like that. But there weren't really any traditional hits within that. You were either a fan of the band and you went and saw them, or you didn't. You didn't hear radio play from those bands, with the exception of Carry On Wayward Son by Kansas. You really didn't hear Kansas ever on the radio. And yet, as a massive fan of the band, all I ever liked were the B and C and D singles. I was not a fan of the big hits. I liked the deep cuts because they were heartfelt and thoughtful. And even though I didn't necessarily pay attention to lyrical content, I liked how those songs captured me. There was a certain emotional resonance that occurred in the stuff that wasn't trying to be something, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's how I feel that song is translating to you. When I look at your material, I think, okay, here's a band, and the first step with being a successful band is sticking together, right? I mean, it's the hardest thing for any band to do is to stick together, to maintain some semblance of a relationship and to keep the band sort of on a general track that is recognizable to their fan base, right? That you don't shift so wildly, diverge into another genre that you lose everybody you've already established as a fan. But over time, songs like that become your Blade Runner, as an example, right? A movie that did not do well when it came out, but now is legendary. Not to assume that you're going to be legendary, but I think if you stick it out long enough, you know, I was talking with a very well-known producer a couple of years ago about this. And it's like, if you just stick it out, you'll be a somebody. Just nobody sticks it out. It's so hard to be in a band because you're married to 3, 4, 5 other people all the time. And, you know, it's hard enough to be married to one person. So I know you know what I'm talking about. It's hard. It's really, really hard.
Absolutely.
You know,
this band, for example, is, you know, we're constantly in touch every day. There isn't a day go by where we don't speak. So it's like you say, obviously, I'm at home with my partner. Obviously, that's one relationship. And then I've got my other relationship, which is the band in itself. So we're always there. So I completely understand what you're saying. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I think the thing that is going to make you very successful, and I really believe you're on the path, is that, you know, you already have the musical content. You're only going to evolve to get better and better and better. That's just a time thing. And you're already putting out really great, solid, well-produced, very, very musical, very, very easy to capture you material. I think the lyrical content is only going to grow as well. And it's not a knock. I think it's fantastic already. But I think the things that I don't connect with in the world are lyrics in general. I typically don't pay attention. I'm one of the few people who it's just, I have no idea what a song's about most of the time. For real. Most of the time I have no idea. It's only after I've heard them 5,000 times where I can quote the lyrics, and I'm still not really paying attention to what the song is saying. But I know, I'm sorry. But most people, Connor, they are doing the exact opposite. All they care about is, what is the song saying to me? And does it have a pulse? that moves me in some way, that captures me melodically and rhythmically? Do I bounce to it? But I'm listening to the words because the words speak to me. The words inspire me. The words tell me a story, or they give me hope, or they tell me how to walk through a problem. And I think that is your key. And I think that's why you're going to be successful, because you're clearly growing and you're producing content that people seem to love, and it's really, really happening fast. So
yeah, no, absolutely. And no, I appreciate that. And what I was chuckling at with what you were saying is, I might have to turn my light on. I feel like I'm going quite hard to just back this on.
yeah,
What? Is that a bit better?
yeah, it's fine.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, it's getting a bit darker. So I thought,
you are 8 hours
sorry.
ahead of me.
Yes.
It's 7:15 in the evening.
Yeah.
All right.
What I was chuckling at was when you said about, some people just, don't think about the lyrics, just listen to song. Just give me a bit of a flashback to when I was younger. So like I say, I used to love my rap, R&B-esque, and it just gave me a bit of a vivid image of me sort of like nodding along, singing to these 50 Cent songs.
Right.
Things like that. For example, Candy Shop, at that age, you don't know what the lyrics mean, but you love it because it's a bump. And then as you get older, you're like, oh, okay, that's what I was.
Yes.
So yeah, absolutely.
Yes. I tell this story often, but when I was, I want to say I was 12. There was a song that came out by a singer. In fact, I still to this day don't know if he's a British singer. His name was Nick Gilder. Are you familiar with Nick Gilder?
I'm not, unfortunately.
Okay. He had one hit. It was called Hot Child in the City. And it came out in 78 or 79. I think it was 78. And it had just this really cool part. It was basically a piano-driven song, just, eighth notes on the piano. Dun, 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 dun. It's just super cool. And the song was about a young prostitute.
Yeah.
Well, I was 12. I just liked the rhythms. I liked the melody. I liked the way he sang. I didn't listen to a word. In fact, to this day, I think I still say the words out loud because I cannot believe that the words are saying what they're saying. But I bought the 45, back in the day when we had the little 45 singles, on a record player. I went to the local drugstore that sold 45s because I had heard it on Casey Kasem's American Top 40. And I went home and I put it on the turntable and I turned up the stereo real loud and walked to the other side of the house. Man, we had our stereo set up in such a way that it would sort of blast down this hallway and I could work down in here and do my creative stuff, my arts and crafts in this other room. And so I had it on super loud. My mom comes down the stairs and she's folding laundry and she's dancing along with the song. Hot child in the city, dun, 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 running wild and looking pretty. Dun, 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 dun. And I, as soon as I'm humming along with it. In fact, I even know the words, and I don't care about the words, but I know the words. And my mom goes, what'd you just say? And I go, hot child in the city, running wild, looking pretty. And then she just goes and she just runs. She runs into where the record is sitting and she pulls out the sleeve because back in the day, you used to put the lyrics on the sleeves. And she's just reading these lyrics and she's like, Robbie Jones. You are not allowed to listen to that album anymore. That song's terrible. And you know what I mean? This idea that it was about a young woman who may or may not be a prostitute. And she's like 12. It's so dark. But I loved it because it was cool sounding, man. I never listened to I didn't care about what the theme of it was. I wanted to hear the song because it was cool.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
Turns out it's a little creepy. It's like a Lolita song, man. It's totally messed up. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm sorry. Okay. There was no story there. There was no point. There was just a story. So then one of the things I'd like to talk about are words. This is not a religious thing, but I like the reference. There's a line in the Bible, and I'm awful at this, so I'm not trying to quote it directly, but basically says your words can destroy, right? The idea that your words, if you can't contain your mouth, your words can destroy. Your words can destroy the lives of others. You say the wrong thing, you've altered a relationship forever. When you're writing material, you're writing words that you fully intend to put out there for a reason. You're telling a story, you're explaining an experience you went through, you're talking about something you think about or fantasize about or want to get over or whatever. But the idea with words in songs is you're sharing them with people for a reason. Have you ever written something where you've put that word out there and you've made it tangible, but now you look back at it even 6 months later and say, gosh, I kind of wish I hadn't have said it that way?
From my own personal experience, I can't say that I have, to be fair.
Good.
And I think that's more so because I'm quite a reserved person. So I'm always thinking about what I say, how it will come across.
Right.
So I'm all very, very cautious. My mum, my dad brought me up in a way of where be careful what you're saying. Whatever you could say, couldn't someone blow it. So I'm naturally of an anxious type of person, naturally anyway.
Yeah.
So before I say anything to anyone, I'm always second guessing in my head. I'm always thinking, are you sure that's okay to say? And then most of the times I won't say it, but then I'll be like, okay. So lyric wise, we've not gotten to that point yet. But I know there's a bit of a hot topic between the lads at the moment where we want to make a song that's quite a powerful and an angry song.
Yeah.
For this is more so from their perspective, where they have a bit of a situation where they want to get off the chest. Mm-hmm. But then I'm always the one to sort of say, maybe don't. Maybe don't say that. We could do it in a different way. So we're still working on that. So at the moment, we've not hit that point. So.
Yeah. Well, in America, you know who Howard Stern is? It's okay if you don't. He's a lot older than you.
Name doesn't ring a bell, unfortunately.
Okay.
My name
No, that's all right. Howard Stern is one of the premier radio disc jockey / shock jocks is what they call them in America. The idea of people on the radio who have very, very weird or almost offensive takes on things because the shock gives good ratings, right? Questionable radio content. And eventually he left radio and went to satellite radio because it sort of freed him up to say and do whatever he wanted without repercussions. I know I kind of asked this question already, but maybe I'm rephrasing it. I think the key to success, and I really truly believe this, is that there's a moment in each of our lives as creative people where we decide we stop worrying about what people think, what people translate, not because we don't care about their take or honor or anything like that, but because we realize that it's something that needs to be said for a number of reasons. It needs to be said because it needs to be heard. Maybe we feel good about this idea and we feel like it's something that has been alighted upon us and we need to share it with others. It could be cathartic for the sake of our own mental health. But I've found that the older we get, this applies to me for sure, which is the idea of being transparent sort of at all costs, that nothing is off the table anymore. Because when you take somebody like Howard Stern, or you take a Mark Maron, who's a podcaster, or you take certain artists who write words to explain exactly how they feel, you might alienate some people temporarily, but you actually bring in a huge audience who says, oh, thank God somebody's saying it, And so I'm curious, do you feel as you get older that transparency is easier for you, or do you still sort of hold yourself back because, you have parents and family and friends to worry about? You don't want to alienate anyone.
No, I do think I completely agree. Like the older you do get, the more transparent you should be. I say should be. It's down to anyone's preference, of course. But
right,
I'm always very, very transparent with everything I say. It's just like I said in the last section, is that there's always a way to say it, if that makes sense.
For sure.
So I will never not tell the truth or not be honest. I will always be honest. It's just how that message is delivered and doing it in the right way. And he's understanding people as well as individuals. Now, when it comes to songwriting, it's a bit different. As opposed to having a normal conversation with someone that may have done something out of order and just sort of highlighting that to them. You can even go all guns blazing and call them the C word or the B. Do you know what I mean? You can go out and give them everything.
The C word.
Or you can just say, look, you've not done something good there. Can we at least talk about it?
Yeah.
And then you can build on that way. But in a song, I've not unfortunately come across that aspect of where I have to relay something. But I'll always speak a truth. In any lyrics that we have, we'll always tell a truth. We'll make sure that it's done right, though, if that makes sense. Or done in a way that we feel comfortable relaying.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, yes. I just realized I'm talking an awful lot today. I'm not asking you a lot of questions. But yes, no, that is true 100%. Okay. So what's next for Alchemize? Where are you going next? What kind of material can we expect? You know, when are you going to release the next things? Do you have a tour, a short tour, festival events, anything coming up in the rest of the year, or are you sort of working towards 2025?
So we've got a good solid plan ahead of us for the rest of this year. Realistically, I don't know how much I can sort of relay. But we've got a show coming up on the 5th of October.
Okay.
Supporting a band called In Death and a band called Cut Short. That's in Manchester. That's Satan's Hollow. That's going to be a cracker. But on the 4th of October, we do have a cheeky release, a new song coming out. Now, I don't want to give too much away on that one.
No, you don't have
because it may or may not have a feature on it.
Oh.
It does.
You're like, it does. It just does. Yes. Yes. Okay. And you can't name who the feature is.
Not at the moment. No, it's going to be a surprise. It's the thing is with this song though, it's a great song. In my personal opinion, it's fast. It's heavy. It gets people moving. It's one of those songs that when I play it myself, I'll listen to it and I'll be like, it gets me pumped. It takes me back to what I was saying earlier about adding the aggression to get you feeling a certain way. It's quite an aggressive song. So it's sticking with our roots as a band, but going to the more aggressive side. So look forward to that one. And then we've got, again, another tour coming up. Not a tour as such, more like 2 shows with the same band, which we've not announced yet. Again, that's going to be a big surprise as well. So I'm going to wait for the band to announce that first before I publicly state, if that's okay. But that will be in Liverpool and Manchester towards the end of the year. And then hopefully we should have another song out then as well. So yeah, we've got quite a solid plan. James has really set us up really well to keep that momentum going. So we've got 2 songs coming out by the end of the year. We've got a good 3 or 4 shows coming up. So yeah, we're constantly moving.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. Well, I like James's roster in general. So I don't know, of course, the band. I really don't. For listeners here, I don't have inside take on this. I don't know. But if it's one of those bands, then you're fine. And if it's not, then even better, because that means, hey, I can't wait for the surprise.
One of his managements, as opposed to the label. But that's the biggest clue I can get, I suppose.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Well, look, man, I have loved having you here today. Thank you for putting up with my quirkiness, my cold, my stuffed nose, and the fact that I keep muting my channel so I can cough and sneeze over here. But I really love what the band is doing. It's an honor to meet you and to just hang out with you and chat and I love this. You know what? I gotta say this. I said it last week. I'm gonna say it again. The best part about this show, for me personally, is I get to meet amazing people like you. I get to fall in love with a new band, a new sound. I get to share that with my fan base, and yeah, I get a new relationship, and that relationship makes my life better, and it makes my listeners' lives better. And I am so glad you were here today. I want you to know that, man. It's super cool.
Well, thank you. And again, I just want to reiterate what you've said there and just flip it back and just say thank you for having me on. Thank you for inviting us across. And, like you quite rightly say now, I feel like I've made a new friend. If you don't mind me calling you my friend,
No,
of course,
absolutely. Better than
new
dad.
friend, and by all means, if, happily to talk again at any stage. So yeah, thank you very much for having me on. It's been an absolute honor.
You've been listening to Sentimental Illness with Rob Leland. Our theme song, Machine, has been graciously provided by Harris Heller. Don't forget to subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcast media. You can directly support the show on Patreon as well, where you can find us at patreon.com/This is Sentimental Illness. It also helps us a lot if you rate the show online, so jump out there and give us 5 stars. And lastly, always remember, your mind will overthink everything, but your heart can never love enough. See you soon.